A virgin maid sleeps naked in Millionaire's hotel room by accident. He shows up. Then this happens. Rain traced slow rivulets across the towering glass windows of the Westridge Grand, a sleek five-star hotel rising in the heart of downtown Chicago. Inside, the marble floors gleamed under the golden glow of chandeliers, and silence carried a kind of practiced elegance. Like a secret, the building kept tucked behind every velvet curtain and polished corner. Beneath the silk-paneled walls and gold-trimmed elevators, staff moved with swift precision, their motions fluid but quiet, their presence nearly invisible by design. Efficiency was required, discretion expected. Among them, Maya Ellis stepped out of the staff locker room with her cleaning cart in front of her, shoulders pulled tight beneath her pressed uniform. The black work shoes on her feet bit into her heels, a dull pain that had grown familiar. She had only been working here for just over a week, but already her body knew the rhythm of fatigue, the slow erosion of energy that didn't come from long hours alone, but from being constantly aware, constantly small. At 25, Maya looked older than she was, not from age, but from the wear that hardship leaves behind in subtle ways. Her eyes carried that weight, the one that comes from trying to hold up too much for too long. Her uniform was spotless, her posture straight, but she never felt like she belonged here. Not really. Not among champagne suites and silk drapes. Not in rooms where people whispered instead of spoke and drank wine instead of water. She had taken this job because she had no other option. Her grandmother's hospital bills weren't going to stop coming, and the Westridge Grand paid more than any other opening she could find. She had promised herself she'd make it work, even if every shift felt like walking a tightrope. That evening, after finishing her 11th room, her supervisor Glenda approached. Clipboard in hand, voice flat. "Penthouse 71A, guests arriving tomorrow. Make sure it's flawless." Maya blinked, startled. The penthouse was normally reserved for the senior housekeeping staff. Before she could respond, Glenda shot her a tired look, raised a brow, and walked off. Too drained to argue, Maya nodded and turned toward the private elevator, swiping her badge with a shaking hand. The ride to the top floor was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that made every thought echo louder. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway bathed in soft golden light and lined with navy carpeting that muffled even the sound of her wheels. She swiped the keycard. A quiet click. The door opened. The suite stunned her. Crystal chandeliers shimmered from the ceiling. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the sparkling Chicago skyline. The bed looked like something out of a royal catalog. The air even smelled expensive, some blend of cedar, lavender, and money. She got to work, replacing towels, polishing mirrors, aligning everything to exact standards. But her hands were trembling, her head foggy. The heat in her chest had spread to her limbs. She was burning up. Her shirt clung to her like wet paper. Sweat slicked her back and soaked through her undershirt. Her collar was glued to her neck. She moved toward the bathroom on instinct, peeled off her damp clothes and rinsed them under warm water to remove the sharp scent of chemicals and exhaustion. She slipped into a plush hotel robe, soft and clean, and only meant to sit for a moment while her shirt dried. But the mattress beneath her was impossibly soft, the kind of comfort that wrapped around her like a whisper. She laid back. Just for a minute. Just one. Her eyes closed, her breathing slowed, and sleep took her. She didn't hear the elevator return, didn't hear the door open. Ethan Cole, founder of Cole Capital and one of the hotel's most exclusive clients, stepped into his penthouse with the quiet confidence of a man used to claiming space. What he found waiting was not what he expected. Not even close. The door shut quietly behind Ethan Cole. He set his briefcase down on the desk, loosened his tie, and shrugged off his coat with practiced ease. Every movement was deliberate, refined, the mark of a man who had mastered the art of control. But as Ethan passed the bed, he stopped short. Something was wrong. The air, usually scented with lavender and cedar wood, now carried something warmer, something unmistakably human. Then he saw her, a woman fast asleep on his bed. One leg had slipped out from under the duvet. Her bare arm curled gently beneath her head. The hotel robe had fallen slightly off one shoulder, exposing a pale collarbone and a line of flushed skin. Ethan stood frozen. It wasn't the intimacy of the image that struck him. It was the wrongness of it. His space had been entered. Not just entered, but occupied. Silently. Completely. He moved slowly toward her, eyes narrowing. No suitcase. No purse. Just a damp towel on the bathroom rack and a hotel uniform draped over the back of a chair. This wasn't a setup. It wasn't seduction. It looked like a mistake. He lowered his voice, sharp and clear. "Miss, wake up." No response. He tried again, louder. "Miss." Still nothing. He stepped closer and gently touched her shoulder, just enough to let her know someone else was there. Her eyes flew open instantly, wide with panic. She gasped, sat upright, yanked the blanket up to her neck. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were back. I thought the room was empty. My supervisor said to clean it. I swear I didn't mean." Her voice trembled, barely more than a whisper. Her eyes darted away from his, terrified. "I wasn't feeling well. I just sat for a minute. I didn't realize I'd fallen asleep." The silence between them stretched tight like wire. Finally, Ethan's voice came. Flat, precise. "Put your clothes back on, then leave." She blinked, stunned, then nodded quickly. Her hands clutched the robe as she scrambled to the corner of the bed where her damp uniform waited. Ethan turned away, walked toward the window, and didn't look back. Maya slipped from the suite without a sound. Her hands shook. Her heart thundered in her chest. She didn't remember the elevator ride, didn't register the hallway. Everything blurred into one long tunnel of panic. Back in the locker room, she fumbled with her uniform. Her fingers were shaking so badly she could barely button her shirt. The fever was back, but it wasn't the heat that broke her. It was fear. Then the staff intercom crackled and Glenda's voice came through, sharp and unrelenting. "Maya Ellis, report to management immediately." Her stomach sank. The walk to the back office felt longer than any hallway in the hotel. Glenda waited, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. Next to her stood a man in a black suit, holding a tablet. He didn't introduce himself, just showed Glenda something on screen. Glenda turned to Maya. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Maya opened her mouth, but no sound came. "He walked in. You were asleep, in his bed, wearing nothing but a robe." "I didn't mean..." "Save it." The man beside Glenda remained silent, watching her like a problem to be solved. "The guest hasn't filed a complaint. Yet. But that doesn't mean this won't explode. You've embarrassed the hotel, put our reputation at risk. And frankly, if he changes his mind, we're done covering for you." Maya's knees buckled slightly. She grabbed the edge of the desk for support. "Effective immediately, you're suspended. Hand in your badge. HR will be in touch." No hearing, no explanation. Just one vulnerable moment, and the bottom fell out. 2 days passed in a blur of silence. Maya didn't leave her tiny apartment. She kept her phone off, the curtains drawn, her body curled up on the old couch like she was trying to disappear. No calls, no messages, no explanations. Just quiet, the kind that fills every corner like fog. She didn't know what was worse, being fired or the not knowing. When her phone finally rang on the morning of the third day, she almost didn't answer. But she did. The voice on the line surprised her. It was the hotel director. Not Glenda, not HR, someone higher. "Ms. Ellis, after internal review and by special request, we've decided to reinstate your position, effective immediately." The voice was steady, practiced. But those 2 words, special request, sent a chill through her. "Whose request?" she asked quietly. "That information is confidential. Your new schedule will be available at staff reception. We trust there will be no further incidents." Click. Maya stood still, phone in hand, head spinning. Special request. 3 quiet, haunting words. The next morning she entered Westridge Grand through the rear staff entrance. Her gaze was downcast, her uniform crisp, her hair neatly tied back. But her presence had changed. Smaller. Guarded. She didn't need anyone to say anything. She could hear it in the hallway. They all knew. Whispers fell silent when she passed. Eyes followed her, quickly turning away when caught. The staff room was colder than she remembered. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Glenda didn't greet her, just handed her a printed schedule. Here, you're assigned to the penthouse level only from now on. Maya froze. Is this punishment? She asked softly. Glenda raised an eyebrow, her voice flat. It's an assignment. Take it or leave it. Maya swallowed hard and nodded. She had no choice. The private elevator to the penthouse was as quiet as ever. Its silence echoed every breath she took. When the doors opened, the corridor was immaculate, glowing under soft gold lighting. She didn't hesitate this time. She pushed her cart forward, her steps quiet and deliberate. Maya cleaned with care, replaced towels, checked toiletries, straightened every pillow, each task done twice, each gesture a silent apology for the memory that haunted these walls. She was folding linens at the hallway cabinet when the familiar chime of the elevator behind her broke the silence. She turned and froze. Ethan Cole stepped out. No tie, navy shirt, sleeves rolled up, his presence as poised as ever. His eyes scanned the hallway and landed directly on her. For a long second, no one spoke. Then his voice came, low but calm. I see you're back. Maya nodded, unsure whether to speak. They called me yesterday, she said, voice quiet. He didn't answer immediately, just tilted his head slightly, then walked past her toward his suite. As he reached the door, he paused. The linen cabinet's unlocked, he said, not unkindly. She flushed, quickly walked over and secured it. He watched her for a moment longer, then entered his suite without another word, the door clicking softly behind him. But something lingered, his gaze, his silence. The fact that he had said anything at all. Something had shifted, and Maya could feel it. 3 soft knocks at the door, measured, careful, as if the person behind them didn't want to disturb the quiet on the other side. The door opened instantly. Ethan Cole stood in the doorway. No tie, sleeves rolled up, black shirt unbuttoned at the collar. No greeting, no smile. Just steady eyes, sharp, quiet, and somehow already expecting her. He stepped aside in silence. Maya walked in, her grip still firm on the tray, like it was a shield between 2 unequal worlds. The penthouse glowed with a soft, warm light. A white tablecloth stretched over the small dining table. 2 sets of plates, 2 wine glasses, 1 bottle already breathing. She set the tray down, carefully laying out each item. The air was not tense, but it held something unspoken. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Low, calm, unhurried. Stay. She turned back, startled. I'm not sure that's appropriate, she said, voice quiet, uncertain. He watched her for a moment. There was no command in his eyes, just a calm invitation. I don't like eating alone. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't performative. It was simple. And because it was simple, it carried weight. She hesitated. Her hands were still clenched, holding on to something too fragile to name. Then, like releasing a breath she'd been holding for days, she nodded and took the seat across from him. He poured the wine, pushing a glass toward her. Maya didn't touch it. Her hands folded tightly in her lap, her eyes fixed on the table. For a while, there was only quiet, the soft sound of utensils, the flicker of candlelight, no forced small talk, no awkward apologies. And in that silence, there was something that felt safe. Eventually, Ethan broke it. You're not like the others. Maya looked up slowly. He continued, voice low but genuine. Most people perform around me. They smile for tips. Say what they think I want to hear. Pretend not to listen while catching every word. But you're just present in a way that's rare. She lowered her gaze again, her throat tightening. Not from shame, but from something else. From being seen. I'm just trying to do my job, she murmured. He nodded slowly. And that's exactly why you stand out. She stood, moving to clear the table, but his voice came again, softer this time. You haven't eaten. It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't a suggestion, just a truth. She paused, then sat down again, this time less tense. Her hands rested gently on the tablecloth. I've never been invited to dinner by someone like you, she admitted, half smiling. Ethan's lips curved, not quite a grin, but real. I've never invited anyone like you before. They both laughed, small, uncertain, but sincere. And in that tiny sound, something shifted. Not loudly, not obviously, but it was real. The air softened, the invisible walls between them thinned, and Maya realized something quietly, something she hadn't felt in a very long time. She wasn't being pitied, she wasn't being tolerated, she was being seen, respected, for who she was, for showing up, for simply being honest in a world that rarely rewarded it. The dinner ended without a promise to meet again, without polite remarks or gestures that crossed any line. Just a quiet nod from him, and a glance held long enough for Maya to know her presence was no longer an accident. It was a choice. When she stepped out into the silent hallway of the penthouse floor, Maya didn't quite know what had shifted between them, but she knew one thing with certainty. She was no longer invisible. The next day she returned to work, on time, focused, and quieter than ever. But the atmosphere downstairs had changed. Silence no longer felt like respect. It felt like observation, poorly disguised as indifference. The glances from her co-workers grew heavier. The hushed voices didn't hush as well. She could feel it. Someone was watching her, waiting for her to trip. And that's how the whispers began. Not because she had done something wrong, but because she had been noticed. After that dinner, Maya was no longer just another staff member at the Westridge Grand. She became a story. No one asked her anything directly, but every glance carried the same quiet question. Who is she, and why her? The whispers began in the locker room, in the elevator, in the linen prep room where trays and towels were stacked. Back to the penthouse again. Must be doing something extra special. No one said it out loud, but loud enough for her to hear. Sophia, one of the more senior housekeepers, was especially sharp. Every time Maya walked past, she'd flash a thin smile. Not friendly, not warm, just sharp. Some of us still earn our shifts with our hands, not our looks. Maya didn't respond. She folded towels more precisely, polished silver faster. She stayed quiet. But silence didn't protect her. If anything, it made her more visible. One evening, near the end of her shift, the front desk radioed in. Special request from 71A. Mr. Cole wants chamomile tea, ASAP. But Maya wasn't assigned. Lucia, a newer hire, was sent instead. 20 minutes later, the staff intercom buzzed again. Send Maya Ellis to 71, immediately. When she stepped off the elevator, Ethan was already at the door. His sleeves were rolled, one hand holding an untouched cup of tea. His voice was calm, but his eyes were unwavering. Why didn't you come? I wasn't on the list, Maya answered softly. He gave a quiet nod, then stepped aside to let her in. As she passed, he added, still soft, but firmer this time. Someone's trying to throw you off balance. Don't let them. She froze, then turned to face him fully. You've noticed? His gaze met hers. Direct, steady, no distance this time. I notice everything, not just what they say, how they look at you. And in that moment, something cracked open, not from fear, but from the sudden, relieving realization that she wasn't imagining things. The isolation was real, but so was the fact that she wasn't facing it alone. From that moment on, it was no longer surprising when Ethan's suite happened to need something, and Maya was the one sent to bring it. He never asked for her by name, but somehow every request found its way back to her. Extra towels, a specific wine, a particular pillow, always her. She never asked why. He never explained. But within those small, repeated details, something unspoken began to form. Not romance, not yet, but a presence that felt intentional. Every time she entered that suite, his eyes found her first, not to assess, but to confirm. She was still there. Still, Maya felt the shift around her. The stares grew sharper, the comments colder. Silence wrapped the staff floor like a warning. She began to wonder, what am I walking into? And then, just as trust began to settle, the past knocked. Not hers, his. She stepped through the revolving glass doors like she had never left. Vanessa Grant, the name that once graced magazine covers and walked red carpets beside Ethan Cole, now returned to the Westridge Grand like a storm dressed in silk. She wore a white cashmere coat. Her heels clicked in soft precision on the marble. Her smile, effortless and sharp, could make most people feel 2 inches shorter. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't have to. "I'm going up to the penthouse," she said smoothly. "Thank you." No one stopped her. She didn't need directions. She knew the way like her name had never been erased from the door. Maya had no idea. She stood outside room 71A, tray in hand, just about to knock, when the door opened from the inside. A woman stood there, wine-colored lips, softly curled hair, and eyes like polished steel. Vanessa took one look at Maya, from head to toe, and tilted her head, smiling slowly. "Oh, you must be the new help." Maya froze, unsure if she should speak or step back. But Vanessa brushed past her, her perfume lingering like a silent threat. "Ethan," she called, like nothing had changed, like 2 years of silence didn't hang between them. Ethan emerged from the bedroom. He stopped. His eyes flickered, for just a second, then settled into calm. "Vanessa, you're not surprised to see me?" She smiled. "Not surprised, just not expecting you. You used to let me come uninvited." Her gaze slid toward Maya. Maya quietly set the tray on the table, careful not to break the tension further. Vanessa turned to her again, this time speaking like Maya wasn't even there. "She's cute, a bit plain, but I suppose that's what you need after me." Sweet voice, sharp blade. Ethan's grip on his glass tightened, but he said nothing. Maya stood motionless, her breath shallow, chest tight. She had never felt more out of place, more small. "I should go," she murmured, eyes on the floor. "No." Ethan's voice was firmer now. He looked at Vanessa, really looked. "You don't get to ask questions anymore. Not here." Vanessa arched an eyebrow. "So she's not just the housekeeper." "She's not, and you don't know her. You never knew me." Each word came low and even, but they struck hard. Silence fell like a curtain. Then Vanessa let out a soft, bitter laugh. "Well, congratulations." She turned to leave, pausing just long enough beside Maya to whisper, "Enjoy it while it lasts." And with that, she walked out, heels clicking like a countdown clock. The suite went quiet. Maya could hear her own heartbeat. She didn't lift her head. Ethan stepped closer, not to touch her, not to explain, just close enough to say, "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "You don't owe me anything." "I think I do." Something in his voice made her look up. Their eyes met. No fear, no armor. And in that moment, Maya saw what she had been too afraid to name. This wasn't pity. It wasn't guilt. It was a choice. Something real. And for once, it was hers too. The door closed behind Vanessa, but the weight of her presence lingered, like expensive perfume that refused to fade. Maya said nothing. She quietly began clearing the tray, every movement careful, almost mechanical. Ethan didn't speak either, but his silence wasn't absence. It was presence. Quiet, dense, undeniable. In that moment, they weren't boss and employee, not past and present. They were two people standing at the edge of something unspoken, where truth wasn't clear and feelings hadn't dared to name themselves. When Maya left the suite that night, she didn't look back, but something inside her had shifted, tentative, afraid, real. Trust is fragile, and when the past starts whispering, the present is often the first casualty. Maya couldn't remember exactly when Ethan said it, maybe after that quiet dinner, or during one of those rare moments when they stood silently by the window. But she remembered his eyes, steady, unwavering. "I want you to be my personal assistant." She thought he had misspoken. Her? A housekeeper? But Ethan didn't laugh, didn't backtrack. He simply added, "I need someone real, someone who doesn't perform, doesn't flatter, doesn't pretend." For the first time, Maya felt seen, not for what she lacked, but for how she carried herself. Quiet, meticulous, honest. She didn't answer right away, but something stirred inside her, a rare opportunity, born not from pity, but from trust. The next day when Maya entered the staff lounge, the stares weren't curious anymore. They were certain, final, and when she found a grainy photo taped to her locker, one that showed her leaving the penthouse late at night. Beneath it, a handwritten scrawl, sleeping her way up. It wasn't in the news, but it traveled, through texts, side glances, and half-whispered jokes in the staff lounge. Maya didn't need anyone to say it aloud. She saw it in the way conversations died when she entered a room, in how eyes met hers, then quickly looked away. In Sophia's smirk, her colleague who had always resented Maya's silence. She felt herself shrinking, like each step down the hallway carved another notch into her dignity. And Ethan still didn't know. He was busy, meetings, projects. And though Maya had quietly shifted into the assistant role, they barely spoke. No one asked if she wanted the job. They assumed. No one asked how she felt. They judged. She tried to ignore it. Focus. But stares are heavier than words. And words, they cut deep. From housekeeping to handpicked, must have been one hell of a night. Sleeping next to power, waking up with a promotion. One evening she passed the front desk. A couple of staff whispered, thinking she couldn't hear. But she heard every word of a story she no longer controlled. That night she didn't go home. She wandered the city streets, clutching her small bag like it could anchor her to something real. But everything had blurred. She wasn't angry at Ethan. She just didn't know who she was anymore. She thought she was strong, but what broke her wasn't failure. It was being misunderstood. Maya had tried. She had pushed through the stares, the whispers behind her back, the looks from people who once called her a coworker, but now watched her like she was a walking scandal. She had told herself silence would protect her. But silence was never enough when your mere existence feels like a threat. Maya sat alone in the linen room after everyone had gone. The walls were silent, but her mind wasn't. She had replayed the scene 100 times, the whispers, the glances, the photo taped to her locker. But worse than all of that was the space Ethan left between them, a silence not filled by ignorance, but by distance. She wanted to be stronger. She had promised herself that she wouldn't run, that she'd endure. But the truth is, she was tired. Tired of proving herself in rooms where her presence always needed justification. Tired of smiling without warmth, of lowering her voice just to avoid standing out. Tired of wondering if being seen was worth being torn apart. She looked down at her hands, still dry and cracked from chemicals and hot water, and thought, if this is what it means to be noticed, then maybe invisibility was safer. She wasn't leaving because she couldn't fight. She was leaving because the fight was costing her too much of herself. That night, after a late shift, Maya didn't head back to the staff dorm. Instead, she sat on the fire escape of the 6th floor, holding a blank piece of paper folded in half. Still unwritten. She thought about calling Ethan, thought about explaining, but then she asked herself, what would he say? That I deserve better? That I shouldn't care what they think? But Ethan didn't live in whispers, and she was drowning in them. Before dawn, Maya returned to the administrative wing. The lights were dim, only a faint glow from a single corner. She left an envelope on the front desk. Inside, a letter, handwritten, the pen slightly shaky, but the words clear. She walked down the hallway behind the hotel without turning back. Her worn shoes echoed on the marble floors. Her thin coat hugged her frame in the early morning chill. And her eyes, dry, focused. She didn't cry. She wasn't angry. She just disappeared, quietly like she had lived. But this time, the silence was intentional. In her letter, she didn't plead. She didn't blame. She only left a single line. When people look at you like you're the mistake, the scariest part is starting to believe them. Maya's absence didn't cause chaos. Empire Court ran like a well-oiled machine. Luxury cars still pulled up to the curb. Afternoon tea was still served. Staff still smiled just enough. Only one person couldn't pretend everything was the same. Ethan. He read Maya's letter over and over again the night she left. And each time the words felt heavier. Not because anything she wrote was wrong, but because everything was right. He hadn't known how much she endured. Hadn't noticed she was fading right in front of him. Ethan wasn't used to failure, even less to loss. But this time, the emptiness couldn't be measured by contracts or stock prices. He arrived at his office earlier than usual, but the desk to the right, the one that had only just begun to feel familiar, sat painfully empty. No one asked, "Coffee today?" No quiet gaze that saw past status or reputation. Just a man. 3 days passed. He worked, met, approved. But each evening, as he stepped into the quiet penthouse, he felt it. Something had slipped from his grasp. Not an employee, the only person who had ever looked at him without calculation. One rainy afternoon, he picked up his phone, scrolled to her name, but the screen answered coldly. "This number is no longer in service." In that moment, Ethan knew he couldn't wait any longer. He had no more choices. He had to find her. It was drizzling, the kind of rain that softened the city into something quieter. Across the street, Ethan stood under an umbrella, watching a small cafe glow faintly from within. He saw her before he stepped inside. Maya was wiping down a table, her movement slow. Same hair pulled back, same quiet presence he had grown to memorize. Except now, there was something else. Guarded, he pushed the door open. The bell chimed softly. She didn't look up at first, but somehow she sensed it. She turned and froze. Their eyes met, and for a breathless moment, the world narrowed to just that. What they hadn't said, what they still carried. Ethan spoke first, voice low but steady. "I've looked everywhere for you." Maya stayed still, gripping the cloth tightly. Her eyes flickered, not with fear, but with the weight of everything unsaid. Ethan stepped forward and placed a small black card with gold trim on the counter. His handwriting across it read, "If you're ready to choose for yourself, I'll be here." She stared at the card for a long moment. He didn't rush her, only added softly, "I'm not here to drag you back. I just need you to know you were never a burden, not once, not ever." She inhaled deeply, steadying her breath. "I didn't leave because I feared you," she said quietly. "I left because I feared believing in something that might never be mine." Ethan's voice dropped to a murmur, softer than the rain outside. "Maya, you're the one thing in my world I never want to justify or prove. I just want to keep, exactly as you are." She didn't speak, just nodded, enough for him to know. Her heart was opening again. A week later she came, no warning, no call. But this time Maya didn't walk through, didn't close doors with hesitation. She walked with clarity, with decision. Ethan looked up from his desk and saw her. He didn't say, "I knew you'd come," or "I was waiting." He only smiled, that soft, unmistakable smile. "This time, I chose to," she said, and he didn't need anything else. Months passed. Maya no longer changed sheets or folded towels. She sat beside Ethan in meetings, her insight sharp, her voice calm and assured. No one questioned her place, not because of who she stood next to, but because of how she stood. She had earned it, by choice. One early autumn evening, with the city glowing gold behind them, Ethan brought her to the rooftop of an old building. No fancy dinners, no spotlight, just the two of them. "I used to think I needed someone to impress the world," he said. "But now, I just want someone who stays when nothing's impressive anymore." Maya smiled gently. "And if I say, I'm still here?" He took her hand, nothing rehearsed. "Marry me," he said. "Not because it's perfect, not because we are, but because somehow you make it feel real." She nodded, not out of romance, but because, for the first time, she chose herself, not just to love him, but to walk beside him. Sometimes we don't fall because we're weak. We fall because we're human. And sometimes, that's the only way we learn to rise on our own.